That's not America. Yes, this country and this state have crime, but more importantly, we have freedoms. After Inauguration Day and Liberation Day and all the rest, America's traditions and our norms are being put at risk. Tennessee wants a partnership with the federal government. We want gun violence prevention money, which was cut under the Trump administration. We'd also like to have more FBI agents on the ground. Some of you will recall we had an FBI field agent office here in Memphis and Shelby County. Well, that was also cut and moved across the state. But we don't want the military in Tennessee. I have a right to do anything I want. I'm the President of the United States. That's what Donald Trump has said recently. And sadly enough, that is truer and truer every day. I'd ask the Trump administration to stand down, don't send the military to another American community, send police, send FBI agents, send law enforcement agents who can get guns off of the street, don't send armored vehicles, don't send men and gals in military fatigue, don't send folks with semi-automatic weapons to patrol our streets. I want less crime, but I need America. This is the land of the free. So at this time, I'd also like to invite to make a statement before we take some questions, the clerk of the General Sessions Court, Tammy Sawyer, to take the podium and make a statement.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. It's sad that the day after this country once again recognized 9/11, President Donald Trump has announced even further reduction of our rights as citizens of this country. Here in Memphis, Tennessee, we are facing several challenges, and we know that number one is poverty. But let me tell you a little bit about what happens if the National Guard comes to town. Currently, Tennessee Highway Patrol just deployed an additional 50 troops to this city. Since they've come to town on Wednesday night, we have had 1,000 tickets added to our docket every day. We've had 70 arrests since their arrival on Wednesday night, made solely by Tennessee Highway Patrol. The state of the jails is beyond critical. Currently, any day you can walk into intake and there are at least 240 people waiting for trial and waiting for bail to be set. If the governor and the president of this country enact dual authorization to deploy the National Guard to this city, they will have the right to arrest citizens. If the president enacts this, then they won't have the right to arrest. But from what we understand, this will be a dual authorization. We as a county don't have the funding. Our jail does not have the space. We don't have the number of employees that we will need to support federal occupation. As my stance as the General Sessions Court clerk is that instead of sending more people here to add to the jail, send us the resources that Shelby County, the blackest county in Tennessee, needs. Our students graduate, 2 out of 3 of them graduate from Memphis Shelby County schools functionally illiterate. Where do we need intervention from the federal government? We need that intervention in the schools. And as a black woman, I'm going to say, Tammy Sawyer is going to say that I am terrified of what this means in the city where Tyree Nichols was killed by police officers. As a black woman, I'm going to say, what happens when rural people from counties that look nothing like Shelby County get to be a part of the National Guard and police a city that they have been told is violent, that they have been told is not equal to them? We are not only at crisis in our operations, we are going to be at crisis in our community. I do not support this decision by the elected president of this country nor the governor of this state, and I ask them to not take away our right to police ourselves and to support our people. Send us money, don't send us more troops.
Absolutely, well said. I think at this time we'll take some questions and then we will adjourn.
Mayor Harris,
yes.
Martin Staunton, Fox 13 News. What's your advice to citizens? You're the mayor and you just said you're scared. What about the other people out there who may be scared? What's your advice to them?
Well, I think we've got a job to do to raise more awareness around what is happening and why this is a turning point in America. I think we're really defiling some of the American traditions here by bringing military forces to American cities. It makes it impossible to travel without anxiety. It stifles the right to protest. And I think all of us should be very wary. So my advice would be is to try as best you can to communicate your anxieties to your elected officials and try to get them to take action. For example, one of the things that I've been trying to get to happen is for a special session to be convened among the county commission and perhaps even the city council to take action, to put on record that we're opposed to the intervention of National Guard troops, and we don't want to see them. The state law, as it's currently written, says that the governor can call for National Guard troops, and it also says that the city council or county commission can also call for National Guard troops. We want to make it clear to everyone that the city council and county commission are not taking that action. And the best way to make it clear that the city council and the county commission are not taking that action is to see those bodies convene as soon as possible and pass resolution to that effect. So I tell people communicate with their elected officials how they feel, and I communicate with all of us to do what we can where we stand to try to see if we can get America to turn around, because we've seen the intervention in other American cities. We've seen the execution-style murder of 11 Venezuelans, and now we see the takeover and occupation and incursion in the state of Tennessee. And so this is not going to end until all of us do what we can where we stand.
Just a quick follow-up. What I meant by your advice is if you're pulled over or approached by one of these National Guard guardsmen or women, what's your advice? What should the people do?
And that's a tough one, because they, as far as I can tell, and we still need more details. For example, we don't know when the National Guard is coming. We don't know what their strength will be, and we don't know where they will be stationed. So we still need a lot more information. But I think we should all be worried because, as your question implies, the National Guard's men and women are not going to be trained on how to make these kinds of arrests and interact with our citizenry. And so it's a dangerous road ahead. I think a lot of them will likely, and I think Clerk Sawyer can comment on this, a lot of them may be drawn from communities outside of Memphis. And so to that extent, there will also be a socialization that will need to take place. And part of that process is also pretty worrying.
If I may add, this is also a call to the business community. I think a lot of business owners believe that having the National Guard will support reducing crime. But if we look at what happened in Washington, D.C. during federal occupation, several businesses closed. It was similar to what happened during the COVID shutdown. Because of these anxieties that you're asking about, people are going to stay home. Our restaurants are going to be hurting. Our nightlife is going to be hurting. People aren't going to be going to Grizzlies games. When people start to see federal troops and tanks in the city, they are not going to be going outside, and that's going to hurt our already very delicate economy.
Mayor, there's Reagan Copeland with Channel 3. I know that you had a meeting earlier today with some lawmakers. Could you tell me a little bit about what you all discussed and what the overall consensus was?
Well, I think that was just a briefing of what we know so far, and I think the reality is that we know very little. I've already talked about some of the gaps in knowledge that exist right now. So we're going to have to wait and see. Clerk Sawyer has already talked about the authority, which particular branch of government is going to actually make the order that these troops come to Memphis and Shelby County. And so that has important implications. We don't know where those troops will be located. We don't know the strength of the force. And so all this stuff remains to be seen. So those questions about that is, what do we know right now, and making sure that everybody's on the same page with the same set of information. I'll also add to the sort of the immediate concerns that Clerk Sawyer talked about. There's a long-term hit to our state from being the first state in the South, first Republican state to be invaded and occupied by the president's call for troops. And that's going to be a mark on our state for many, many years and generations to come. And so I don't think that anyone wants that on their legacy, certainly not the folks standing up here. But I would also say that Governor Lee shouldn't want that on his legacy, that as he goes out of office in 2026, that Tennessee would become the first state to be occupied by troops after a call from the federal government. That's not a great thing to have on one's record. And so I know that maybe the die has been cast and it may be too late to turn this thing around, but hope springs eternal, and maybe Governor Lee will reconsider supporting this effort of President Trump to call for troops.
Mayor Harris, when did you first become aware that this was a legitimate possibility, and what have discussions been like between you and Mayor Young, and also have there been any discussions with the President's office?
No, I've had no discussions with the President's office. I'm in regular communication with City Hall, and so I think I learned on a timeline that is pretty close to everyone. I think the first media reports were this week, and I think that is not too dissimilar from when I first heard that this was a real possibility.
Ezekiel Telemacco with ABC 24. President Trump said earlier today that Mayor Young was, I guess, happy about this. And again, what conversations have you had with Mayor Young? From your opinion, is he in support of the troops coming, or is he against it?
I assume he is. Let me not speak for him. But what I'll say is, I don't think there's any Memphian who is supportive. So I think that all Memphians are against seeing individuals with military fatigues, semi-automatic weapons, and armored vehicles on their streets. I don't think anybody feels comfortable with that. And so we're going to do everything we can to see if we can turn this thing around, like moments right now, to raise awareness. But also, I'm going to explore litigation to see if there is a legal ground for us to prevent this action from taking place. So we've got the awareness piece. We're going to try to see if we can get the county commission and other folks with some authority to convene as soon as possible, but also explore whatever legal grounds we have that might bring a pause or a stop to some of this.
And have you talked to Mayor Young in particular about this?
I have, but I don't comment on conversations.
And I just want to say, in response to what was said this morning by the president about the mayor being happy, I would urge media to be clear that the president often exaggerates conversations and often makes statements that are not founded. And I'm sure that the mayor is going to hopefully come forward and be clear with the community about where he stands on this. I don't take the words of the president at fact. I would definitely urge us to wait for Mayor Young to make his own statement. I caution my fellow Memphians against rushing to take that as fact before we hear from the mayor himself, and I am very hopeful that the mayor will be clear that he is not happy about this occupation, as this mayor has done.
Gordon Montgomery, Action News 5, wanted to ask about the nature of Trump announcing this. He said on Fox and Friends, "I'm going to go ahead and announce this." Was this planned to be shared at a later date? Was this unexpected for the Shelby County and Memphis legislation?
What, did you want to say something about that? Is that so? It seems like you were moving to go ahead.
Oh, no, I was
okay.
actually-
Well, so I think the Trump administration and President Trump in particular has time and time again proved that he is, spontaneous and unpredictable. I don't think he operates based on a playbook, based on what I have seen. And so I think his Fox News interview was probably unplanned, and he just decided to say something. But when he says something, at least something as serious as this, it hurts all of us. Our city's reputation has already been dragged through the mud today as a result of his comments, no matter what happens from here. And if people act based on what he says, if Governor Lee or others actually send troops to Memphis and Shelby County, then we will have crossed another milestone in this country. And so, no, I don't think it was planned. I think he was shooting from the hip, as he normally does, without fully appreciating the consequences to Americans from his really, really dangerous comments.
I counted 3 times where you said the word invasion,
Mm-hmm.
and you started out talking about your fear. What's your biggest fear about this invasion? There's lots of guns in Memphis.
Yeah, I want to get guns off the street, and the best way to get guns off the street is to send law enforcement agents who are trained for domestic work. So that's your FBI, ATF, DEA, and we want to see those agents come to town. But those agents have, of course, the funding has been cut, and those agents have been moved elsewhere. We once had an FBI field agent office here in Memphis, and now that has been moved to Nashville. And so that's what we'd like to see, that kind of intervention. But military personnel in American cities do represent an occupation. And the biggest fear is we lose our democracy. There's only a couple ways to lose your democracy. Number one, the military follows the orders of a man without regard to whether those orders are lawful or not lawful, right? That happens, you're in deep trouble. Donald Trump is chipping away at that every single day. He's constantly ordering the military to do things that are questionable to illegal, like the murder of the 11 Venezuelans. And because the military has not refused any of those orders yet, that puts us in jeopardy. The other thing you need to happen is you need to be able to squelch debate, protest. You need to be able to get into the cities. You need to make sure that people know they're not coming outside to protest if you decide to stay past 2028 or whenever you decide to leave, right? That's what you need to be able to do. And to send National Guard to cities across America is how you practice for that, right? Because no one's going to go out and protest while the National Guard's here. So if they do come, let's say they stay 30 days, there won't be any protests because it's a dangerous, scary environment. And they're certainly not going to be going to restaurants and shows and all the rest. And so Memphis will pay the cost of that. We'll pay the cost of that for what? For Donald Trump to make an announcement, for Donald Trump to prepare for the overturn of 2026, for the overturn of 2028. I think we all need to wake up that this is very, very serious, and our American democracy hangs in the balance.
Mark, if I can add really quickly, thank you. Two things to that. First, on the guns, there are a lot of guns in Memphis, and that scares us as well. But let's be clear that Bill Lee, who is about to co-authorize this invasion by the National Guard, also is responsible for allowing permitless carry in this state. Permitless carry is directly tied to the rise in robberies because one of the biggest crimes that's happening in Memphis right now is people robbing cars to steal and look for guns. Oftentimes, we find these cars discarded or just rifled through because they're looking for guns. They're not looking for money, they're looking for guns. Why are they looking for guns? Guns sell. Guns make cash. Guns make money. We are a poor city. And so the governor who allowed permitless carry is now sending National Guard into this city and saying it's dangerous, but isn't looking at the role that he played in the rise of guns on our streets. That is escaping accountability. Secondly, I just also want to say about the point of squelching protest. Let's be clear that the 5 cities that have been named for potential occupation, Washington, D.C., which is already occupied, Memphis, Tennessee, Detroit, Chicago, and New York, also somehow happen to be 5 of the highest per capita black populations in this country.
You don't think that's a coincidence?
Take out somehow. It's clearly not a coincidence. So the 5 of the blackest cities in this country are the ones that are being named for federal occupation, silencing the biggest electorate that is against Donald Trump. It's purposeful, it's on purpose, it's retribution for our vote, and it's preparing for what we are going to see, the further erosion of our democracy in 2026 and 2028. This isn't a president, this is a person trying to be king, and he is doing that in our city.
Maybe 1 or 2 more, and then we gotta go. 1 or 2 more.
About a new statement from Governor Lee. He says, this is multiple paragraphs. I'll just highlight the top ones. The first paragraph: for months, I've been in constant communication with the Trump administration to develop a multi-phase strategic plan to combat crime in Memphis, leveraging the full extent of both federal and state resources. He says that this is a comprehensive mission with Tennessee National Guard, FBI, THP, Memphis Police Department, and other law enforcement agencies. And he says he has authorized additional troops, Tennessee Highway Patrol troops here in Memphis, and he's planning to speak with the president this afternoon. What's your thoughts on what you just learned from Governor Lee's statement?
I mean, I'm going to hold out hope that speak with the president means trying to get him to back off, and I hope he does. And I think, again, we don't have any problem with some of those things that are in that statement, but military or military-like personnel, that's where the line has to be drawn. I mean, zero crime, the promise of zero crime is one thing, but we cannot give up everything that is America in exchange for a promise of zero crime. And that's what this represents. That's what the militarization of American cities represent. And as Clerk Sawyer says, there'll never be zero crime in Memphis and Shelby County, no matter what Donald Trump throws at us, because we have the proliferation of guns. And we have the proliferation of guns because we can't convince Tennessee officials to take a responsible approach to guns. And so until we can figure out how to make the case to them, we're never going to have zero crime, and it's because of the gun laws that we have. And unfortunately, they are not in our favor. Maybe one more.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Raven Copeland with Channel 3. I know you said that this is a wait and see when it comes to the National Guard, but for the community that might have questions, to your knowledge, what would the National Guard be legally obligated to do? Are they able to make arrests, things like that? What are they obligated to do?
So it again depends on how the authorization comes down. If the authorization is federal only, they are not allowed to make arrest. If the authorization is dual, which would be federal and state, then they are authorized to make arrest. And right now, I've looked at the Tennessee Code and various lawsuits. They are authorized to make arrest. Lawsuits have been made, and the citizens have lost those lawsuits when the Tennessee governor has used the National Guard previously. So we do know that with Bill Lee's approval, they will have the same right as any other police department. Similar to the other question that was asked, Governor Lee's statement mentions Highway Patrol, and I would like to reiterate that the 72-hour presence of increased Tennessee Highway Patrolmen here in Shelby County has already increased our occupation in the jails and oversaturated the court dockets. So again, we do not have the staff, we do not have the finances, nor do we have the space for a dual authorized federal occupation.
All right, very good. Thanks everybody for coming, and I'm sure we will, stay in touch. Very good. Thanks very much.
Thank you.